Hi everyone, welcome back to the part 2 of this video, which is Cognizant interview questions. These are all real interview questions which are asked in the recent interview, and I will share all of the question in this video. Make sure you like this video, you subscribe to my channel, you subscribe to my other channel, the Hindi channel as well, and link in the description below. Make sure you watch this video till the very end, because it will be very helpful if you are applying with a like senior role, like 4 year 5 years experience. And these are all real interview questions, and you won't find these questions anywhere in any other channel. So if you are struggling with the interviews, make sure you take a piece of paper and pen, write down all the questions and practice them. I'm sure you will clear all the rounds. And please like this video. Our like target is 150 right now. And the first question we have is, what is the default scope of a bean in a spring? So if we talk about scope of a bean, there are multiples like singleton, prototype, and request, session, global session. And the default one is singleton is default session, default scope of a bean. And when you create a bean, automatically it will be singleton. Of course, you can convert that into prototype also, and for that you need to add certain configuration in the annotation. You need to change the annotation. And if you are using the XML approach, then you need to change the properties in XML also, and which is the older one. But nowadays everybody is using annotation, so you just need to make changes in the annotation. The next question is a subsequent question for earlier asked question, because it's a same thing, like what is the difference between singleton and prototype. So these are the two different scope of a bean. So if you talk about singleton scope of a bean, in the case of singleton, only one instance is created, but in the case of prototype, multiple instances created. Prototype is something, if you are creating object, every time you are creating object with a new keyword, so that it takes memory, like in the heap memory, and it is kind of a prototype bean, because multiple instances are available. In the case of singleton, only single instance are available, only single instance is available. So singleton, in the case of like if you talk about memory utilization, singleton is better compared to prototype. But there are certain scenario where you have to use the prototype as well. So real time examples, like consider you have configured some form elements, like in a textbook configured, so to validate names like email address and example, and you have to have a living instance of them every time the form is created. So this is one of the example where you need prototype instance explicitly. Otherwise you will do your like singleton will do a job for you. So there are multiple examples as well available. You can find them where you can use the singleton, sorry, prototype bean. So and this was our next question as well. So I haven't read that our next question was, can you tell me any hypothetical scenario where you need prototype bean? So as I earlier mentioned, you can use prototype bean where you have to have multiple instances. So multiple instances, as I earlier mentioned, to for the validation purpose in a form, you have to have multiple instances simultaneously, which will like which will validate the form. So you can have multiple instances in that scenario. Okay, so this is one of the hypothetical scenario. You can have multiple other hypothetical scenarios as well. So this was our answer for this question. Now I will quickly jump to the next question, which is, do you have any exposure on microservice architecture? So if you applied with experience with the microservice architecture, or the requirement is for microservice architecture, the interviewer must ask this question. So do you have exposure on microservice architecture? And microservice itself is a very lengthy topic. So if I talk about microservices, there are multiple things you can talk. Okay, and it's a hot skill nowadays, so you must learn this. So if you are working on monolith spring boot application, you must learn the microservice architecture as well, like before applying anywhere, because it's a very hot skill and there are multiple jobs which are available on the microservice architecture. So if I talk about microservice architecture, it is basically uh, before my microservice architecture, I will quickly tell you what is monolith architecture. Monolith is a single application base which have a single database connected to that, and uh, single code base. So when you run this single application, all the modules are available in the single application itself. But in the case of microservice architecture, what you will do, you will uh, have each and every module you will divide it separately in a separate Spring Boot application or any other technology whichever you want to use. Your front end can be a different microservice, your backend can be a different microservice. Your each and every API or each and every module, you will create a separate set of APIs in a separate Spring Boot application, and that is your microservice architecture. And there are various way these microservices are communicate with each other. There is web client, there is a REST template as well. So web client is something which is synchronous way. Web client is synchronous way. Okay. And in the case of these are the way where microservices can communicate with each other. Of course, everybody prefers the REST communication, the communication which is not storing the session. Okay, so this is all about microservice architecture and how it works. How there are multiple other things where, whatever framework, there are multiple frameworks like Saga design patterns and Hystrix and everything which are available in the microservices. You can talk about them, whichever you are using in your current project. Talk about that only, because and read about that first, then only you can talk. Otherwise, if you say that you know certain things and you don't tell that, it will be very bad impression for your interview. So these are all the things about microservice architecture. So I hope you got some idea about microservice architecture, how it communicates, how we create a microservice architecture. It's not a different technology, it's a uh, doing the things in a different way. So now I will go to the next question, which is how the services are deployed. This is more of a DevOps question, but as a developer you need to have an idea, basic idea, that how your services are deployed on the server. So it can be an in-house server or it can be a cloud server as well. So if you talk about in-house server, you may have using CI/CD or pipelines or any other way, or it can be using a certain uh, uh, servers, like web servers, application servers, anything to deploy your application, if I talk about the monolithic architecture. But in the case of microservice architecture, people generally prefer the Google cloud environment. So there are certain clouds which are available, like Google Cloud is there, like AWS is there, and to support those, there are various other technologies which are available to deploy your application on the cloud atmosphere. If I talk about Azure, there is Kubernetes as well, which are the tools which are used to deploy your application on the cloud environment. If I talk about AWS, there are certain things you have to create EC2 instance, then you need to deploy your application to the server. And so there are multiple things, so you need to answer this question according to your project. So first you need to find out what are the technology, the tech stack you are using in your project, and then you need to prepare your answer accordingly. So I will now quickly jump to the next question, which is it deployed in any what is proud environment or any in-house server? Cloud, it may be cloud, the person have right proud. Okay, so is it deployed in any cloud environment or any in-house server? So where it is deployed? So as I already talked about the deployment of a application, it can be cloud environment or it can be in-house server. So first you need to find that where exactly you are deploying your applications. So if you are deploying your application on cloud environment, there are certain technology which has been involved, like you must have using Spring Cloud, Eureka client server, or other mechanism which has the cloud environment. Or it can be the technology like related to AWS, Google Cloud, Azure, Kubernetes. Those technologies you have to have a basic idea, or at least CI/CD pipeline, how it works. You have to have basic idea, not just deep idea according to the DevOps team, but the basic idea as a developer you have to have that. So in that case you can answer this question in a better way. So you need to have a basic idea, write down the question and write down everything about it in your current project, so that you have how you can answer this question. This is a very important one. So the next thing is, can you tell me what is the difference between microservices and monolith architecture? As I earlier talked about monolith application and microservice architecture in my earlier question, while answering the earlier question. Monolith applications are basically a single application, a single code base which is using a single database instance and uh, deployed on a single server. Okay, so in that case, what happens? All the modules are available in the single application and they are communicating with each other. Or in the case of microservice, you have a separate code base, separate applications, they are communicating with each other using REST template or any other technology, or it can be async communication like Kafka, RabbitMQ, any messaging service it is using to communicate. There are multiple ways to communicate between microservices. Okay, so this is a basic idea behind microservices. The benefit of having microservice architecture is you can easily if one module is defective or some problem or some bug is there, you can create you don't need to shut down entire application to do that. This will impact only one module only, so you can remove the bug from that module and redeploy it again. Of course you can test the separate module individually, so that is another benefit of having the microservice architecture. Now there is one more benefit of having different technologies. So suppose you have a some team is very familiar with some other technology, so you can because these microservices communicating with each other with the help of REST or Spring REST or REST communication, JSON communication is happening between them. So you can entirely having a different technology with each and every microservice. So there is another benefit of having microservice. So there are multiple benefits, and once you deep down into microservice and read about them, you will get an idea. It is very simple topic, as I mentioned. Okay, now the next question which is, what is the benefit of microservice architecture? So as I'm talking about microservice, I'm talking about all the things related to microservice. Earlier mentioned the benefit of having microservice, like separate modules. You can test the module separately. If one module is down, you can run the module, you can test and debug the module separately and then deploy it. Okay, there are other benefits of microservices, if one microservice is taking load compared to other microservice, you can have multiple instances deployed of that microservice. Of course you can load balance as well. There are load balanced and circuit breaker design pattern which has been involved, so you can leverage that as well by using the microservice. Of course there is drawback as well of microservice, so I will talk about drawback as well. Drawback, the one and only if I talk about drawback of microservices, the architect the it's a complex architecture, because multiple microservices, multiple Spring Boot applications are around, so it's a complex architecture. Okay, of course. And there is there is multiple code which is kind of a copy of earlier written code, because as these suppose two microservices communicating with each other. In the one microservice you are sending the employee object, so you have created employee model, entity, everything, and another microservices which is catching, which is consuming that employee object, which is kind of getting the employee. So in that microservice 2 also, you have to have employee object model and every entity and everything again. So this is very data is kind of a reuse. You can't reuse the data. Okay, you have to have different classes, same but different class, same but classes in a different microservice. Of course testing, debugging and deploying everything is hard as compared to the single application. So that there are some drawback as well of the microservices. Now if I talk about quickly about the next question, which is which database you are most familiar with, RDBMS or NoSQL. So there are two type of databases, one is RDBMS and other one is NoSQL. NoSQL is means not only SQL. I mean, if I talk about NoSQL, the example is MongoDB. And if I talk about RDBMS, the example of MySQL or Oracle. So in the RDBMS, we have tables, data, views, and everything, relation between tables and everything. But in the case of NoSQL, we don't have anything like that. We have collection. It's a data kind of a collection or kind of a JSON format. Okay, so this is the like main benefit or like main difference of having the between the SQL and NoSQL database. Of course, the use cases are different according to the need of the project. If you need, if you have to have huge database and you don't need to worry about the relationship between database, then you will go for the NoSQL. If you talk about SQL, like if there is a small set of users and then like small set of data, then you can go for RDBMS as well. So this is the main difference between SQL and NoSQL, and where you should go for SQL and where you should go for NoSQL. So I hope you got an idea of all these questions. These are all the subsequent questions related to databases and everything. And thank you so much for watching this video till the very end. I'm sure it will be very helpful for you guys, and please like my other channel as well. Subscribe my other channel as well, subscribe to this channel as well. In my other channel, which is a Hindi channel, I speak about career talks, latest related things, everything. I will talk about everything, finance and everything. So make sure you if you like this type of content, keep subscribe and keep giving your precious feedback to my channel. Thank you so much for watching this video till the very end. Bye bye, take care.